The city had two faces. One belonged to light, to glass towers, champagne nights, and silent cars gliding along avenues like predators. The other hid in the cracks, between neon signs, behind curtains, in the breath of those who still believed in dreams. Lucas Valentine had long lived in the light. His name opened doors, his company was a legend. Money, power, control, everything he had once desired was now his, except peace. That evening, when he entered the gallery on the 17th floor of the East Quarter, he wasn't looking for art. He was looking for silence, but instead he found her. A young woman in a grey coat stood near a painting, an abstract piece, sharp and chaotic, like a storm trapped in colour. She didn't just look at it, she listened, as if waiting for the canvas to speak first. "You see something different too, don't you?" Her voice cut through the air. Lucas turned. Their eyes met, steady, searching, quiet. "Chaos," he replied. "Or transformation," she countered. Something in her tone intrigued him. Not her beauty, though she had it, but her fearlessness. She spoke to him as if she didn't care who he was. That, in his world, was rarer than gold. Her name was Eliza Moran. Architect, independent, stubborn. She designed spaces for people who could never afford to live in the towers Lucas owned. Their second meeting happened by accident, or fate, if one believed in such things. Lucas was overseeing a new project, a glass monolith meant to redefine the city skyline. Eliza had been invited as a consultant, a small name among giants. When she entered the boardroom, he saw the flicker of surprise in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "Mr. Valentine," she said evenly, "we meet again." Seems so. While others spoke in terms of profit, Eliza spoke about light, air, human flow. Her words didn't match the glossy charts, but somehow they made the room feel alive. After the meeting, Lucas walked her to the elevator. "You know, you made them all nervous," he said. "Good, they should be. You like provoking powerful people. Only when they forget they're human." The elevator doors closed between them, but something had already shifted. Days turned into weeks. They crossed paths again. A dinner, a charity gala, a construction site at dawn. Each time the distance between them shrank. He began to crave her presence, the way she saw through his walls. And she, though she'd never admit it, found herself waiting for his messages. It wasn't love yet. It was recognition. Two people from different worlds, drawn together by something they couldn't name. One night, they stood on a half-finished rooftop, the city stretching beneath them like a circuit board of light. The wind tangled her hair. "You ever wonder if all this was worth it?" she asked, looking down at the glowing grid. "Every day," he said. "And?" He hesitated. "Still don't know." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe you're not lost yet." He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in years, Lucas Valentine felt something break inside him. Something cold, something that had protected him for far too long. The world outside kept moving, deadlines, mergers, contracts. But for Lucas, time had changed tempo. When Eliza was near, hours dissolved like mist. When she was gone, the silence felt unbearable. He started visiting her studio under the pretense of checking progress. But progress was only an excuse. What he really wanted was to listen to her voice as she worked, to watch her sketch lines that somehow made cold glass feel alive. She didn't flirt, didn't play. If he came, she offered him tea, not wine. If he stayed, she kept drawing, speaking to him only when the silence grew too thick. One night, she handed him a rolled-up plan. "Here," she said, "this is what the community center could look like if you weren't afraid of imperfection." He unrolled it. Instead of steel and mirrored walls, there was openness, a courtyard filled with trees, natural light, space for people, not prestige. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "It's honest," she corrected. Their eyes met, and something sparked, not fire, but recognition, the kind that goes deeper than touch. But the higher he climbed toward her, the more fragile his world became. People noticed. Whispers followed them through corridors and conferences. "She's distracting him. She's dangerous." His assistant once said it aloud. "Sir, she's not like us. She doesn't understand your world." Lucas had almost laughed. Maybe that's the point. Then came the dinner at the glass house. a shimmering gala beneath a ceiling of lights. Eliza stood out not because of her dress, but because she wasn't pretending. While others smiled with their eyes closed, she watched, curious and wary, as though the entire evening were a stage play she refused to join. Midway through, a woman approached them, Victoria Hale, one of Lucas's oldest acquaintances. Her smile was sweet as champagne, sharp as glass. "Lucas, darling," she purred, "and you must be—" "The architect." "Eliza Moran," Eliza said calmly, offering her hand. Victoria's eyes slid over her like she was inspecting a prototype. "Ah, the one everyone's talking about." "That bad?" Eliza smiled. "That unusual?" Lucas intervened. "Victoria, maybe another time." "No, it's fine," Eliza said, still polite, still composed. "I'm used to being an unusual story." That night, on the ride home, Lucas tried to apologize. "She had no right." "She had every right," Eliza said. "Your world isn't built for people like me. I just walked in without an invitation." He looked at her, helpless. "Then I'll rewrite the rules." "Don't," she said softly. "Because if you do it for me, you'll never stop doing it for others." The car slowed. She leaned against the window, watching the city blur by, reflections, lights, ghosts of people rushing somewhere. "You can't save me from what I am, Lucas," she said quietly, "but maybe you can learn what that means." And he did. In the weeks that followed, they grew closer, yet the air around them thickened with unspoken fear. He took her to the construction site of his next project, a skyscraper meant to bear his name. "Do you like it?" he asked. She studied the steel beams, the glass rising into the fog. "It's impressive, but it doesn't breathe." "It's not supposed to. Everything that doesn't breathe eventually breaks." He looked at her, puzzled. "You think I'm like that too?" She met his gaze. "I think you've been holding your breath for a long time." The wind rose between them, cold and real. He didn't answer. One evening, he found her standing on the rooftop again, arms crossed, hair moving like ink in the night wind. "You keep coming up here," he said. "It's the only place I can see the sky without glass in the way." He stood beside her. Below them, a city that obeyed his every order. And yet, for the first time, he felt small. "You scare me sometimes," he admitted. She turned to him. "Why?" "Because you see through everything." "No," she said softly. "I just refuse to look away." He reached out and touched her hand. She didn't pull back. For a long time they stood like that, no promises, no declarations, only the sound of wind, and two people realizing they were already too far gone to turn back. When dawn came, he walked her home. Neither spoke, but both knew something had begun that could no longer be undone. He kissed her goodbye, not like a conqueror, but like a man who'd finally found something worth losing everything for. And she let him. 2 weeks passed, 2 weeks filled with long talks before sunrise, glances that said more than words, and touches that felt like promises. 2 weeks that changed Lucas Valentine's life. He didn't understand how it happened. They never defined what they were. But when she showed up in his apartment with a cup of coffee and that quiet, disarming smile, he knew. Without her, even the air felt heavier. He worked less, listened more. The city that once belonged to him began to look different. And that scared him, but also made him feel alive. Outwardly, though, he was still the same, the billionaire with a kingdom of glass. Until the facade cracked where he least expected it. Monday morning, the headline spread across every business outlet. Billionaire Lucas Valentine in a relationship with architect of his own consortium project. Conflict of interest. His photo with Eliza. The same restaurant where he'd first let his guard down. He put the tablet aside, jaw tight. He didn't need to guess who had leaked it. Edward Langford, his oldest partner, the one who didn't forgive disobedience. An hour later, Langford stormed into his office without knocking. "Have you completely lost your mind, Lucas?" he started. "The press is eating this alive. You're having an affair with someone who's profiting from your company's contracts." "She got them because she's talented," Lucas replied, calm but cold. Langford's laugh was sharp. "Talented? You know what they're saying? That you've gone soft. That some woman's got you on a leash." Lucas stood. Watch your mouth, Edward. Langford raised his hands, mockingly. Oh, forgive me. Should I not mention that your little architect isn't exactly one of us? Silence fell heavy. A flicker of something dangerous crossed Lucas's eyes. Get out, he said quietly, before I forget we were ever partners. Langford hesitated, then smiled coldly. You'll destroy everything for her, and when you realize it, it'll be too late. He left, slamming the door. Eliza found out hours later. Her phone was flooded, calls, messages, interviews, threats. She sat in her studio staring at the headline, the room spinning around her. When Lucas came that night, she didn't speak at first. I'll fix this, he said quickly. My lawyers are… It's not a legal problem, she interrupted. Then what is it? She turned to the window, arms crossed. They're not attacking your project, Lucas. They're attacking me. He took a step closer. All that matters is that you know the truth. They don't care about truth, she snapped. They want blood. They want a spectacle. They want to prove that a man like you can't love a woman who doesn't fit their world. Her voice broke. Do you realize what this means for me? For my career? For everything I've worked for? He reached out. We'll face it together. And if it destroys you, she whispered, then so be it. She shook her head, eyes glistening. You can't fight a hurricane by standing still, Lucas. Sometimes love means walking through it alone. He wanted to tell her that he wasn't afraid, but for the first time he was. Not for himself, for her. The next day, the board called an emergency meeting. Every seat was filled when Lucas walked in. Lucas, said the chairman, we respect your personal life, but the situation has escalated. Investors are nervous. The company's reputation is at risk. Because of gossip? He asked, voice like steel. Because of perception, another replied, and perception drives value. He leaned back in his chair. What exactly are you suggesting? End the relationship, temporarily at least. Lucas laughed softly, bitterly. You talk like I signed a contract, not found a human being. You have a duty to the company, the chairman said. You don't have the right to put feelings before business. Lucas stood slowly. Then you've misunderstood who I am. And he walked out. That evening, he went to Eliza's apartment. She met him at the door. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. I heard about the board, she said quietly. I don't care. Lucas, she sighed, I can't be the reason you lose everything. He looked at her, a mix of defiance and love in his eyes. You're the reason I'm finally living. She looked away, shaking her head. Then promise me something, that you won't lose yourself. He touched her face gently. With you, I finally know who I am. She closed her eyes, leaned into his palm. For a moment there was peace. But outside the world wasn't sleeping. Reporters camped at her door, cameras flashed like lightning every time she stepped outside. Calls, threats, anonymous letters, all part of their new normal. And then one morning, when he came to see her, the door was locked. On the doorstep, a letter, inside her handwriting. Lucas, I'm not leaving because I'm afraid. I'm leaving because I want you to fight without me holding you back. Sometimes love isn't being beside someone, it's letting them breathe. E. He stood there, holding the letter, feeling something collapse inside him, quietly, without sound. That day he didn't go to work. That night he didn't answer his phone. He just sat in his apartment, watching the city lights blur through the rain. And for the first time, he understood what it meant to feel. Underneath the pain, something else began to form. Not anger, not despair. Resolve. He knew this wasn't the end. The city kept moving without him. Headlines shifted, new scandals replaced old ones, and Lucas Valentine became yesterday's obsession. But silence was never peace. It was pressure, building, waiting. Weeks passed. He returned to work, colder, sharper, or so it seemed. But inside something had changed. The man who once ruled through distance had learned the weight of connection. And he couldn't go back. Every deal, every meeting, every late-night boardroom echo felt hollow without her voice cutting through the noise. Then came the World Urban Leadership Summit. The event of the year, every major investor, politician and media outlet in attendance. Lucas was scheduled to deliver the keynote address. For the first time in his career, he didn't write a speech. When he stepped onto the stage, cameras flashed. The crowd fell silent. Behind the glare, he saw faces, some hostile, some expectant. He adjusted the microphone. His voice, when it came, was low but steady. "For years I've lived by one rule," he began. "Control everything, feel nothing. Build higher, move faster, never look back." A pause. "And it worked, until one person walked into my life and shattered that illusion." The audience murmured. Reporters leaned forward. "They say power means not needing anyone. But I've learned that power without heart is just another form of emptiness." Another pause, deliberate, raw. "So to anyone who thinks love makes you weak, you're wrong. It's the only thing that ever made me brave." He took a breath, then met the eyes of the cameras. "And to those who still question my choices, I'll say this once. Eliza Moran isn't a scandal. She's the reason I remember who I am. The reason I still believe people matter more than numbers. If that costs me my empire, so be it." Silence. Then applause, slow, uncertain at first, then swelling until it filled the entire hall. He left the stage without looking back. Outside, flashes erupted again, but this time he didn't flinch. That night, he sat alone on the terrace of his penthouse, the city humming below. For the first time in months, he felt still. And then, a familiar voice. "You've always hated speeches." He turned. Eliza stood there, her hair caught by the wind, a faint smile curving her lips. "How did you—" "I watched," she said softly. "And then I came." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she stepped closer. "You shouldn't have done that for me." "I didn't," he said quietly. "I did it for us." The city lights reflected in her eyes, gold, trembling. He reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. "You once told me love can't fight hurricanes," he said. "Maybe not, but it can stand through them." She smiled, that small, knowing smile he'd missed so much. "You're a stubborn man, Lucas Valentine. Only when it matters." He leaned in, slow, certain, and kissed her. No cameras, no audience, just two people finding their way back. Months later, the scandal had faded, replaced by new dramas and louder names. But in the quiet corners of the city, whispers remained. About the billionaire who defied his board. About the woman who made him human. About the night the empire bowed to something greater than power. Lucas and Eliza didn't chase headlines anymore. They built, quietly, deliberately. Together they launched a foundation for urban renewal, turning abandoned buildings into schools and housing. Sometimes, late at night, they'd walk the riverbank, where the city's reflections danced across the water. He'd ask her what she saw, and she'd always answer the same: transformation. Because that's what they were, two people who had rebuilt each other. As they stood there, wind tugging at their coats, the skyline stretching like a pulse of light, he realized something simple and absolute. He hadn't just found love. He'd found redemption, and for the first time in his life, the world, in all its chaos, noise, and imperfection, finally felt real. Of course, here's the English translation of the rewritten Part 5. In a cinematic, dramatic, emotionally charged tone, written for an American audience as if it were the script for a prestige drama film or limited series. Autumn had settled over New York, draping the city in a silk-gray haze. Rain fell almost every day, and the glass towers reflected a dull, restless light, as if the city itself couldn't decide whether it was morning or night. Lucas Wren sat in his office on the 78th floor, staring at the skyline that now felt distant, almost unreal. 2 cups of coffee stood on his desk, one his, one long gone cold. Eliza had left early for a meeting with her foundation's investors. He missed her, though he'd never admit it to anyone but himself. Then his phone buzzed. A notification flashed across the screen. Wren Corp, under investigation. Internal documents leaked to the press. He read it 3 times, refusing to believe it. No document should have ever seen daylight, especially those about the government contract deal they had been negotiating for months. A knock on the door. Peter, his assistant, entered, pale, shaken. "Sir," he said, voice tight, "it's not a rumor. The leak is real. Someone released everything. Emails, accounts, even personal messages." Lucas rose slowly, like a predator before a strike. Find out who did it, he said, his tone cold. Whatever it takes. 2 days later, the media storm hit. Talk shows, newspapers, podcasts, everyone was talking about one thing. Lucas Wren, the empire on the edge of collapse. And every time he turned on the screen, his heart clenched, not from fear for himself, but because Eliza's picture flashed across every broadcast. She's using him. He's blinded by a publicity stunt. The interracial relationship that could destroy a dynasty. It wasn't random gossip. It was strategic, precise, a knife disguised as a headline. That night, the rain tapped against the windows as Lucas watched Eliza sleeping. Her face was peaceful, the neon reflections from the city brushing across her skin. He could feel it. She sensed the danger too. Someone's trying to destroy us, he whispered, and I'll find out who. The answer came sooner than expected. The next morning, Peter burst into the office and threw a tablet onto the desk. We found the source, he said, out of breath. Someone from your father's old circle. The name is Alex Morrow. Lucas froze. Morrow? Yes, sir. Your father's former partner. You forced him out 5 years ago for fraud. He's back, built a new company under another name. And according to what we traced, he's the one funding the attacks. The name hit like a ghost, returning from the grave. Morrow, charming, ruthless, the kind of man who smiled while twisting the knife. Once, he had been Lucas's mentor. Almost. Eliza heard the news that evening. This isn't just a business attack, she said quietly, her eyes sharp. He wants to destroy everything you've built, including us. Then he doesn't know who he's dealing with, Lucas replied. There was no rage in his voice, only a quiet, deadly resolve. Within a week, the empire was shaking. Contracts were suspended. Banks called for audits. Journalists demanded answers. And through it all, Lucas stayed silent, waiting. He knew Morrow would want to face him in person. Men like him always did. They wanted to see the collapse. The meeting came sooner than expected, in a private Manhattan club, beneath the hum of rain and the scent of aged whiskey. Morrow walked in, confident, the same predatory grin as years ago. Lucas, he drawled. Been a while. Not long enough, Wren replied. They sat across from each other, two reflections of ambition and arrogance, now divided by betrayal. You know, Morrow said, swirling his drink, the world doesn't like when people like you mix love and power. They want purity, white and black. You ruined the illusion. You're mistaking the world for yourself, Lucas said quietly, and I won't let you touch her. Her? Morrow smirked. You'd risk everything for a woman. You think she'll stay when it all burns down. Women like her don't live in hell, Lucas. They survive it by leaving. Silence. Lucas looked at him, and Morrow saw something in his eyes that made him uneasy. Not anger, but certainty. You're wrong, Lucas said. She's the reason I'll burn the hell down myself. 1 week later, Lucas struck back. His cybersecurity team hacked into Morrow's offshore accounts, uncovering a web of bribes and illegal shell companies. The evidence went straight to the media and the federal prosecutors. The headlines flipped overnight. Former Wren associate under investigation for corporate espionage. Morrow fled the country, but the damage lingered, not in money or contracts, but in trust. Reputation could be rebuilt, but the scars, they stayed. That night, Eliza sat by the fireplace, silent, staring into the flames. Lucas joined her, their reflections flickering in the glass. It's over, he said softly. She shook her head. No, it's just beginning. There will always be someone trying to tear us apart. But now I know something. He looked at her. What's that? That we're stronger than their hate. He pulled her close, the warmth of her heartbeat grounding him. Outside, rain still fell, but it no longer felt cold. It sounded like cleansing, like renewal. The shadow of Morrow had passed, but what remained between them burned brighter than ever. Lucas Wren, the man who once believed love was a weakness, finally understood. Empires fall, fortunes fade. But when you find the one person worth fighting for, you can build a new world, from the ashes, unafraid.